Phoebe, we just watched The Matrix 4 Resurrection, but what if it's not the story we think it is?
But what if it is?
Oh my gosh, mind blown. Whoa, I think I'm going down a rabbit hole. There's a white rabbit with a pocket watch chasing after me. I can't figure out what's happening. Is it a cash grab? Is it a strike on capitalism? Is it about freeing our minds? What is The Matrix about?
It's about everything.
That is pretty clear.
I think that's kind of what they told us in the movie, too.
They did. They told us a lot.
Yeah.
A lot of things. Greatest movie sequel of all time?
Let's talk about it.
I'm ready right after these messages from our theme song.
They yell about directors, yell about the plot, yell about the acting, but they also talk a lot. But mostly Joshua and Phoebe yell about the movies.
Phoebe, we are back with a brand new episode of Joshua and Phoebe Yell About Movies. Today, we're talking about a movie.
The Matrix.
The Matrix 4. Finally, we've gone back to The Matrix. Was the wait worth it? Have you been waiting, thinking about this sequel for 20 years?
I mean, the first Matrix definitely changed my life, my religion, my perspective, and definitely my outfits. But the second and the third lost me a little bit. I was beyond confused. So this one, I was excited to reconvene with an experience I had when I was 20.
I see. And what was that experience?
Nostalgia and a little bit of commentary to some of the serious stuff that we're going through today, like AI, pandemic. I don't know, lots of themes that came up that we're commenting on current times today that the first one also did in the 90s.
Yeah, like the red pill, the blue pill. And then it turns out it's not even a choice.
But I have a feeling you and I disagree a little bit on this movie. A little bit. Is that okay? Are we going to still have a successful episode if a husband and wife disagree?
Wow. This sounds like a mutiny. But I will say that I just want to remind you that you went into this movie saying, okay, this looks really dumb. And you weren't too excited. You're like, yeah, fine. I'll talk about it for the podcast.
Definitely.
Yeah. And
I'll talk about anything for the podcast.
Okay, you will. Okay, so I noticed as the movie went on, you found yourself enjoying it a little bit more. Could you talk about that and how it subverted your expectations?
I did. I felt like the trailer itself was already commenting on itself. It just reeked of a remake every step of the way for the first half hour, and definitely through the trailer. It commented on its own analysis. It commented on itself. It gave a wink, wink, nudge, nudge joke to things of the past. It was completely confident in the success of the franchise.
It absolutely was. But should it have been? You know, I thought back on this wink, wink comment you're giving, specifically the very first one, when the new Morpheus shows up in the bathroom and he says, "At last." And Keanu Reeves is like, what? And the new Morpheus, who's played by a guy with three names, whose name I can't remember still, but he plays Candyman, and we've seen him in everything lately. He's a new Morpheus, and he explained in a flashback video. Also, this movie showed you more flashback videos of the first and second and third film than any other film I've ever seen.
Oh my gosh, it was so self-conscious and yet completely confident of itself. By the way, the actor that played that is Yahya Abdul-Mateen II.
Well, he's got a lot to live up to because of Yahya Abdul-Mateen I. His dad, I heard he's a big fan of the podcast. Anyway, so yeah, the setup is we learn a little later that Keanu has been gone for 60 years. It's not 20 years in our real time. It's been 60 years of the Matrix. So this new Morpheus character has been suffering under the machines for 60 years. And you'd think he'd be a little more worn down and not up for making like little jokes like that, you know, with someone who didn't even know what the joke was. It was a joke to himself. But maybe that's how they keep their spirits up.
Well, that's what I liked about the first Matrix. It was completely humorless. It wasn't sure that it was going to be a hit yet, so it was more focused and more directed, and it was much more deep. This one is like, yeah, we've made $1 gazillion. We're good. We can tell some jokes now and even poke some fun at ourselves. And it seemed a little slapsticky to me. I don't think it made for a bad movie that they were being humorous. I just think that it, compared to the first Matrix, when it wasn't commenting on itself and self-conscious and also kind of arrogant and full of itself, I thought it did a little bit better.
First Matrix blew everyone's minds.
Blew my mind.
Blew your mind. It created a whole new language for talking about films, like Following the White Rabbit, Blue Pill, Red Pill, Bullet Time, all these other effects.
Although I do feel like the references to one pill makes you larger and one pill makes you small, and then also the Alice in Wonderland, like they're tired. Like they were really kind of trendy in the 2000s, and I thought those were tired. I was more interested in how they resurrected the Matrix.
Right.
And the commentary that they were making on present times. I thought that was really interesting.
Right. And I also like seeing Keanu Reeves in the bathtub with a rubber ducky on his head.
Okay, I enjoyed that too.
And you also enjoyed seeing him on the toilet with poop thoughts, you said.
Yes.
And we had to rewind that one.
Don't miss it, folks. We rewound it. Don't miss it. Keanu Reeves on the toilet having inspired poop thoughts.
That's right. It's on HBO Max, so you can't rewind at the theater, but on HBO Max you can. Spoiler. Rewinding is the thing.
Okay, that one I enjoyed. And there were some moments that made me laugh. I just generally struggle with exposition and self-commentary.
Right. Now, there was quite a lot of it.
What did you call it? Meta?
Right. Meta is a state of commenting on itself. Like we're commenting on our own podcast, you guys.
It was completely annoying, and we must be annoying too.
Well, I don't think so. Anyway, yeah, well, like, did you think there was too much exposition? So just to go over the plot, at the very beginning, he's like a game designer, and we see him, the robots have tricked his mind into thinking that the Matrix was a game he designed. So all the 3 other films he's watching is like a video game world he thinks he's creating, called, and it's by a company. No, the new game's called Binary.
Well, which I also wonder if because Binary came up a lot. Even the therapist, who turns out to be the architect, Doogie Howser, Binary came up a lot, and I wondered if it was also a statement. Since a lot has happened since the first Matrix.
Yep.
One is that the Wachowski brothers have transitioned to who they truly are.
Yep.
Which are women.
The Wachowski sisters, or as the tagline now says, the Wachowskis.
The Wachowskis.
The Wachowskis, which is easier for everyone.
So I wondered if when you hear words like binary in the age of like educating ourselves to sexuality and non-binary and, the concepts of choice being an illusion, and if there was any sort of commentary to that. I thought it was interesting.
Well, there might be. Like, at one point, like, the game designers, when they're hashing out, when they're like, what is the Matrix? And one person was like, I think it's about trans ethics. Another one was about, I think it's about overthrowing capitalist society. And, but that's what I really enjoyed. That's one of the things I really enjoyed about the whole concept of the Matrix. Like, the whole world is a construct, and you can't really see the truth. That's big. And it's done a little clumsier than that. And a little film I love called They Live, starring wrestler Roddy Piper, when they put on 3D glasses and they can see the hidden images that the little skull, the demon-looking skull aliens have everywhere, but only if you're wearing the 3D glasses, then you can really see the truth. So that, I'm not saying they watched that movie, but they probably did. It's a great movie. They Live, Roddy Piper. But the Matrix, you can really overlay your own ideas onto it. Christianity, Buddhism, trans politics, capitalism, socialism. Same
way as you did the first time.
Right. In fact, we know you can do that because the right-wing movement capitalized, you may not be aware of this, but they capitalized on this concept of red pilling. And so they say by red pilling, you're waking up to the fact that, the right wing is the way to go, essentially.
Never heard that.
Well, now you have.
Where did you learn that?
I read a lot about conservative culture.
Wow. Gosh. Well, let us know how it goes.
I don't spend a lot. I only read about the stories about Reddit. I don't actually go to Reddit and read these stories firsthand.
I just have one question for you.
I'm ready.
Are we going to live?
Yeah.
Okay.
Of course.
However, nothing apparently can breed violence like scarcity. I thought that was a very interesting point. What do you think they were talking about with that?
Well,
they were talking about war.
Right.
What were your thoughts on that?
Nothing breeds violence like scarcity. That could be a commentary on just about anything. It could be a commentary on war. It could be a commentary on scarcity of thought. If you have scarcity of thought, you just believe everything your narrative tells you to, and everything outside of that narrative, you shut it out. And then you call yourself a free thinker and you go on Fox News. Anyway, and you make $1 million. Okay, just like the guy this week who told Joe Biden to let's go, Brandon, and then he calls himself a free thinker.
Oh my god.
Free thinker, just like all the other yokels going around saying
upsetting. That. So disappointing.
It was
disheartening. Disheartening is the word.
Yeah. So anyway, there was a lot to it. And okay, so the wink wink, nudge nudge stuff, like what is the Matrix, what is it all about, Morpheus. The new guy plays the character a little lighter than the old Morpheus.
Much lighter.
Right, however.
Everybody's much lighter.
However, it gets to my next point. The girl that plays Trinity does not play it lighter. She plays it stone cold straight. It was like no time for them emotionally. It happened between then and now.
Right. Carrie-Anne Moss.
Right.
I've always wondered, was there any other role that she had ever played? And are we watching the span of her dramatic scope? I don't know. But I think she's great as Trinity. What a love story.
She's great. I believed it. And what were you saying about Trinity?
Carrie-Anne Moss is fantastic. I just wondered if we were seeing the entire scope of her dramatic ability, because I've never seen her in anything else. Has she been in anything else?
I'm not going to do a second IMDb search in this episode.
Okay. Well, she was great in this, and I actually thought that Trinity came more alive and was more honored and given more power in this, I don't want to call it an episode, but this...
Feels like an episode because...
film.
Right, it feels like an episode because the ending really felt like they were setting up for a sequel, like that
For sure.
Cover of Rage Against the Machine by a female singer,
right.
Whoever it was, we didn't look it up. And then they fly off, except this time it's Trinity flying off, not Neo flying off.
Right, that they were stronger together. Because honestly, like, even though The Matrix blew my mind, the first Matrix, I didn't believe that they were in love. I didn't get that part of the story at all. I got it a lot more poignantly in this one.
Yeah.
Neil Patrick Harris, not Doogie Howser. Neil Patrick Harris was totally awesome in this, by the way. And so was, I forget his name, the guy that was in Hamilton.
Oh, right. The guy who played Agent Smith in this one.
Yeah, I thought I thought the actors were really great. Did I buy that Agent Smith suddenly came out and had an alliance? They even commented on it. They were like, an unexpected alliance. And it's like, oh my gosh, they're commenting on themselves and their decisions again. Well, okay, fine, but...
I know, but that felt like, to me, like a trope borrowed from, like, kids' action movies of the 80s, which I haven't looked how old the Wachowskis are. I'm guessing they're my age and probably was...
unapologetically formulaic.
Well, so is everything. You can't escape formulas.
No, I'm not anti-formula. I'm just saying stop commenting about it and like saying like, aren't we great? Like throughout it. It was a little annoying.
Oh, well, I mean, his unexpected alliance thing, that was, I mean, it felt like a plot of a G.I. Joe cartoon.
Right.
In the 80s, which I'm guessing that they probably watched, because I'm assuming they're my age, about 40s.
One of the things that you said while we were watching the movie that I thought was especially fascinating was you pointed out how they made the Matrix into a video game and Neo into, or Mr. Anderson, was the designer of the video game.
Right.
Which is a comment on how we, even today, gamify reality.
We sure do.
We sure do. Everything from Tinder or any host of dating apps or, gosh, what else? Social media and wars that are happening on there just through like tweeting. And it's not a game.
Right. Politics is turned into gamified.
Gosh,
right. It's like our side, our side, their side. I mean, right. And that's, sometimes you just want to curl up and take the blue pill.
Right.
They drown everything out, just go into work or podcasts or whatever you're doing and ignore everything.
Right. And just like the character Shepard said, that he said people wanted to be free. Like the concept of, what was the other thing he said? Not all seek to control, like of the robots, not all seek to control, just as not all wish to be free.
Yeah.
why would somebody want to come into this horror movie of a reality?
Right.
And just stay in a pod.
There's not even redwoods anymore. There's one point when they make it back to the new human city, which is now called Io, because Diane was destroyed and it didn't succeed. And Niobe, who's Will Smith's wife,
Jada Pinkett Smith,
and to make her look like an 80-year-old woman, is so excited they can synthesize strawberries now. And before, all they had was like oatmeal kind of slop.
Which I absolutely found offensive, by the way. Like,
what?
No offense against Jada Pinkett Smith. I mean, like, it's her role and everything, but like...
You hated her.
I thought that she was the worst. Right. I didn't say I hated her. Hate is strong. I just think that she's the worst.
No, there was no connection between her and Neo. They tried to set up like this little connection. Like, this movie also did a lot of pulling on strings. Like you said, nostalgia. So many minor characters are brought back. This Indian, Indian woman was like the little girl from the first Matrix who like wakes Neo up, and now here she is.
Mrs. Joe Jonas.
Right. Yeah, she was there. Some bad guy characters. Some allies of Neo from the second and third movies were there as like villains, and like a completely meaningless fight scene, right? Right. The fight scene was really just between Neo and Agent Smith, but they threw in all these other guys for what? It was totally meaningless. I mean, the fights didn't quite live up to what they did before, except I get really hyped up with the Neo versus Agent Smith fight, and he blasts him out of the wall, with his when he remembers that he's fighting for Trinity, which was the same way he blasted Morpheus out of the house when Morpheus was fighting him, and he said, and Neo says, I don't feel like fighting anymore. And Morpheus reminds him that you do. You remember who you're fighting for.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was beautiful. There were a ton of 2000s cameos by...
Yes.
Like, one of them, you just mentioned one, and then the other one was Christina Ricci, who came out of nowhere. I'm still trying to figure out her, like, connection to this, other than that maybe, like, somebody on set thought that she was fabulous, but...
Or owed her a favor.
Something like that. She was pretty fun. She seems like a bobblehead of herself in this.
Also, she seemed like she was from the movie Mars Attacks, like an alien.
Yeah.
She was like, hey guys, we're going back to the Matrix,
Yeah, she was in a different Tim Burton film, but yes.
Now, did you hate all of the wink, wink, nod, nod stuff? Like before, my favorite one was where the new Agent Smith character, who, yes, is Jonathan Groff, the guy who played King George in Hamilton. He had my favorite wink, wink, nod, nod line when he told Keanu Reaves, who was still playing Mr. Anderson at this point. He wasn't Neo yet because he hadn't woken up. He hadn't been woken or waked, whatever you want to call it. Yeah, he said, Warner Brothers says they'll make the new Matrix with us or without us. And Keanu was like, they can do that? And then, the movie's made by Warner Brothers.
That was very funny. Okay, that moment was both annoying and funny at the same time.
Absolutely,
it was very tongue-in-cheek. I thought it was very funny.
Right. Now, between those two characters, I felt like they could do that realistically because they're in that made-up world. But whereas Morpheus, he shouldn't have been able to do that because he should have been feeling the weight of 60 years of robot oppression.
Right. What did he say? Because Hugo Weaving, who was the original Agent Smith, was not playing Agent Smith. So when he said...
Except in flashbacks, which there were a lot of them. My gosh.
I hope he got some residuals for that. But Groff looked and said, oh, gosh, I wish I could remember the quote, but it was mentioning Warner Brothers and redoing it because they could, and he was like, but they can't do that without them, Keanu says, and he was like, oh, but they can. I just thought it was really ironic considering that he was Hugo Weaving's replacement.
Oh, yeah, that too. Good point. Yeah, no, this Jonathan Groff was just like a smarmy, just like douche, and you just wanted to hate him, but I thought he was really effective at this as this character, didn't you think?
Yeah. I thought it was interesting that Carrie-Anne Moss's character known as Tiffany, which irritated her.
Yeah.
Which was fun. Married a Chad.
Right. And
Chads in American culture are known to be these sort of like douchey white guys that have really rich dads who vacation and get super drunk on White Claw and Jaeger in Nantucket, Massachusetts. In fact, there's an entire Instagram page called Chad Tucket, which is kind of hilarious and wrong at the same time. So I didn't know if that was a comment on douchebags named Chad.
But I hope it is. It would be more fun if it was. More fun. It's okay to make fun of random names, because, I mean, we can't make fun of specific people anymore, so let's make fun of random names, I think. Yeah, what did you think about, the bigger philosophy behind this stuff? The more we manipulate you, the easier you are to control, that Neil Patrick Harris said at the end in this long speech when Neo comes in to rescue Trinity, and then the analyst, played by Neil Patrick Harris, slows him down, and he gives his big, I'm the villain speech. Here's the whole theme of the movie.
Oh my gosh.
Or did that drive you crazy?
There were 3 different Deus Ex Machinas there. And for kids at home that don't know what that is yet and haven't become a theater major, Deus Ex Machinas are a device in scripts of a person that comes out and explains to you everything that happens and sums up everything and gives the answers so that there's lots of closure. And there were 3 of those. There was a lot of telling, not showing. Mm-hmm. But they can get away with it because this is already, made $1 gazillion, so they have the confidence to be able to wink at themselves.
Well, I wasn't sure that one was winking. I thought it was more explaining the greater philosophy behind it to make sure that their narrative didn't get hijacked by the conservative movement, for instance. They want to make sure that they made it as specific as they could, I think. But what did you think about that binary thing? It was not really a choice. One of the options was, do you want to remain meekly incarcerated or go rescue Trinity? Not really a choice.
I don't know. I want to look into it. I can't help it. I can't hear the word binary without thinking non-binary and everything that we've learned from the LGBTQ anon movement, right? So knowing that the Wachowski sisters or the Wachowskis are trans women, I wondered if that was on purpose, if that was, the cons. I haven't really fleshed out this thought because I'm still trying to process the concept of binary and choice through the Wachowski sisters' minds.
Well, maybe you're using the concept of adaptive anger and human trauma like Neil Patrick Harris was to Neo. Mm-hmm. Right, who he was trying to convince that all these episodes were just created in his own mind as an adaptive process to cope with his trauma.
Right.
Which, by the way, I read a Slate article and they said some of these techniques he was using, touching your pants or these other things were actually real techniques.
Well, there are real techniques, like people who experience trauma, especially for those that are, been traumatized by assault or abuse of any kind. They recommend tapping, where you tap on your head, pressure points on your head to sort of ground you into reality or in the present moment, which is didn't look the same for Neo and Keanu Reeves in the movie, who kept doing these funny things with his hands, and I thought it actually came out looking a little goofy. But tapping is a real practice, yes.
It is. And going back to his relationship with the analyst, which I enjoyed almost as much as his relationship with Trinity. He was talking about his trauma-induced dreams, which he thought were dreams.
Was it the relationship, or was it Neil Patrick Harris's sassy acting job?
Oh, sassy acting job, for sure.
He's so good.
But I loved when he said, "Doc, am I crazy?" And Neil Patrick says, "We don't use that word here."
We don't use that word here.
So, come on, that's fun. You gotta love that. And then, of course, the reason most people, including us, got lost with Matrix 2 and 3, they couldn't figure out how to wrap up the story because it was way too convoluted. And how about this ending thing where they rescued Trinity? How complicated was that? I mean, I wrote down, it was called the Anomalium. There's no way anybody could dissect this without writing out these plot points. Impossible.
I felt like the movie ended at the point where Trinity turned back and said, "Stop effing calling me Tiffany. All right, effing hate that name."
Right, and then she kicks Chad into another dimension, and then then her and Neo come together and they blow them all away. And then it was like, oh, wait a minute, now there's more than it. And then it became another round of fighting and with a bunch of, I think, CGI people. Possibly, and it
went on a little too long.
Right, but then we got to see them ride off into the sunset on a motorcycle again, and kick ass, and we got to see Keanu throw a rocket into a helicopter, and then they jumped off the building. And then she could fly, not him.
She could fly, not him. Thank you for saying the kick-ass part, because if we could rewind to the very beginning of the movie, the very first scene, where they're going into the original scene, where all of the agents come in and find Trinity sort of like in a room by herself.
Right, they replay that from a different angle. With this other character, Bugs, played by a girl named Jessica Henwick. Bugs was the only original character of any real substance in this movie.
Right, so Jessica Henwick Bugs goes in and she sees her, she's like, I've seen this scene before.
Yeah.
And then she announces, this is where she kicks their ass. I was like, stop it with the self-conscious, like, commentary. It's not even self-conscious, because self-conscious means insecure. It's just like the self-commentary. It was desperately annoying to me. I did not enjoy that at all, and I probably would not have been able to get through the movie if not for you and for our wonderful, delightful podcast. And I did enjoy it. Mm-hmm. I loved the love story. It got me a little verklempt, and it was fun to revisit with all of that. But at the end of the day, like, totes cheesy.
Okay.
Like, as cheesy as the word totes itself.
It is very cheesy.
I thought it was an appropriate use so that people at home could feel the cheese.
Okay. Be that as it may, did you like any of their inventions, like how Morpheus in the real world is now like a ball-bearing android that can like jump over things?
Interesting, although it didn't make sense to me why he needed to climb. If he could manifest suddenly, why did he need to climb and scale other...
Right, during this like Mission Impossible scene at the end where they're trying to rescue Trinity. Now jump onto this ship. Now climb in here. Now go into the exhaust room.
He just manifested on like Neo's prison balcony. Why can't he just manifest on the... Yeah, I thought that was dumb. But I did appreciate the technology. Yeah. I thought that was kind of cool.
And then there was another guy in Niobe's lab, like another ball-bearing character who they just threw in to make it seem even more like Star Wars, because all the other new characters, the ones that get one or two lines, just felt like extras from like the fifth character from a Star Wars, TV show. Not Star Wars, Star Trek show.
There are way too many 80-year-old actresses, like Rita Moreno, for example, who was cast in our recent podcast movie West Side Story, that could have played this role, other than Jada Pinkett Smith, who for not a moment did I believe was actually old. Her performance was dreadful, and I was pretty anti that decision.
Okay, well, she was dreadful, but I don't know, I thought they were just trying to honor all the original cast as much as they could. But then again...
Really? Because Agent Smith and Morpheus are nowhere to be found.
I know! That seems like, seems pathetic.
I mean, there were a lot of people that were not there from the original.
Yeah. So why did they pick and choose?
Why? It's binary. Why? It's not binary.
It's not really a choice, is it?
It's not really a choice.
Not really a choice.
Apparently Tom Hardy made a cameo in this, and trust me, I was looking out for it. I did not see it. Mm-hmm. Did you catch it?
Absolutely not.
Do we have to watch this again?
Definitely not. I mean, I've watched it twice. I loved it. You should just look up who Tom Hardy is.
I know who Tom Hardy is. I just don't know where he was in the movie.
He's an actor that is wearing something covering his face in most of his movie roles.
Trats.
Yes. Probably in this one too. Okay. Well, what stood out to you the most in this movie? What did you love the most?
I think what stood out to me the most on the positive side was the concept of gamifying the real world, and how serving robots either way, people preferred the Matrix versus people that wanted to be free. And it made me think about today. Whether it's AI or working from home or social media.
Or the thousands of people that stormed our nation's capital on January 6th and thinking they're independent thinkers. Right. We're on a sightseeing trip and not breaking and entering.
Yeah, I did feel, I think I was 19 years old when the Matrix came out for the first time, and I felt like I had a new religion and a new outlook and a new perspective on life, and I was delighted, despite all of the commentary and the wink-winks. Mm-hmm. I was delighted that the Matrix Resurrection was also providing that same invitation to be woke, to your current surroundings now. Like, it was commenting on things that we're going through today. I mean, honestly, the world feels a lot more like The Matrix today than it did when the first movie came out. Like, I'm a little more afraid of my surroundings than I was when I was 19. Maybe that's just because I realize I'm not immortal anymore. Or because, times are scary.
Or maybe because, just about everything has layers underneath it that we can't see. Mm-hmm. And there's always another story.
But I did appreciate when Trinity said, something like, I'd love to go to therapy, but I'm just too damn tired.
Yes, that was during one of Neo and Trinity's little scenes together, where he was trying to sort of wake her up and remind her who she was, and she said that. Yeah,
I could relate to that.
She asked him so what's it all about, or something like that, and he says, I pay my therapist a lot of money to answer those kind of questions for me. And that's when she said, yeah, well, I could use more therapy, but honestly, I'm too damn tired. Right? You loved it because you related to that.
I totally related.
And I think we all can during this pandemic that is seemingly never ending. I think.
I know. There's all this stress on mental health, which is absolutely needs to be stressed and focused on, but gosh, it feels like, at this point, whenever anybody brings up causes, I feel like they're handing me a pamphlet. Can we just, if we address it then? Right.
You're like, I'm tired of looking at the problems. What are the solutions? Is that?
Mm-hmm. How are we addressing the other pandemics happening now? Unraveling mental health and the like. I don't know. It makes me want to go into a pod and just stick a spike in my neck and just go into an alternate universe.
I know. Well, part of unraveling mental health is we actually have to pay for it. That's usually the answer to a lot of these problems. Yeah, pay for it. Make it easily accessible. There you go.
Wow.
Simple. I mean, it's a lot more to it, but simplified.
A lot more. There's a lot more.
To it. But we have to have qualified people. And people need to know when to get access to the help and how to get it and why.
There's also things like, health barriers and circumstances.
And inequity and inequality and all those things. And that is why we can look at The Matrix as a frame of reference to put all of our problems of the whole world on.
Just give me the blue pill.
There you go.
Give me the blue pill.
You got it. Blue pill for Phoebe. Okay, well, guys, it sounds like we've come to the end of our Matrix episode. Let's do a rating for The Matrix 4 Resurrections.
Oh, this is difficult. You're going to hate me.
I could never hate you.
I'm going to give it 7 black cats.
Wow. I'm feeling like this is deja vu all over again.
I'm taking 3 off because I was not amused by all of the self-commentary on how the whole thing reeked of a remake and how they commented on its own analysis and on itself and made jokes. I was just wanting a new episode of The Matrix, really.
I understand, but if they followed the same formula as 2 and 3, part 4 would have been incredibly bad.
You know what? You're absolutely right. So I'm going to say 7 black cats, and then we'll add on 3 spoons. But there is no spoon.
Look at that. Call it a callback. That's incredible.
I was about as vague as Matrix 3.
I'm going to give this movie. Okay, you know what? I'm going to back up and say the real way to review a film or even look at a film is first, not by critiquing all these little points or dissecting everything afterwards. It's first asking yourself, how did this movie make me feel in the moment? When you have that as a frame of reference, then you can go back and look at these other little things and then see if that changed your perspective at all. But if you just ignore how you feel, then you're ignoring the magic of the movies.
Oh.
They transport us to a different place. In this case, The Matrix. And it transported me, made me feel good. I enjoyed it. Some of the fight scenes were a little meaningless. I would have liked to have seen Hugo Weaving or Lawrence Fishburne, but we didn't. Instead, we got pretty good substitutes. I love Handyman. That's our little joke. She hates it when I say Candyman.
Don't say it again.
All right, I'm not. By the way, we might do Candyman in the future. How do you feel about that?
If you say it one more time, I'll never do it with you because I'll be killed.
Fortunately, there's no mirror in here. Or is there? Okay, yeah, The Matrix. I'm gonna give it 8.5 bullet times out of 10.
Okay, and I'm going to stick with my 7 black cats because I was so annoyed by the self-commentary and I was so delighted by re-engaging with the feeling of the Matrix that it levels out to a 7.
Okay. Well, thanks so much, guys. We'll see you next week.
Oh, but I'll add actually an entire point just because Keanu Reaves is in it. Okay, so 8 black cats.
Great, guys. We'll see you next week, or we'll try to. It's going to be tough because we're going to a wedding this weekend, and it's New Year's and family, and wow. We'll see. We'll try. Okay. And with that, thank you, and go watch The Matrix. We loved it. We loved it.
Loved it.
Loved it.
Sure.
Sure.
Can't wait for the next one.
I know. Bye. Is there a next one? Who knows? So far, they're not announcing, but it looks like it should be because apparently they can do anything now. They can fly and plant pink rainbows in the sky, and Agent Smith is still out there.
They yell about directors, yell about the plot, yell about the acting, but they also talk a lot. But mostly Joshua and Phoebe.